You are listening to Animated Indulgence, the explicit and opinionated podcast where grown men talk about cartoons. Each episode will pick apart, analyze, and dissect an animated series or movie.
Warning, there will be spoilers, even potentially for shows and movies that are not the topic at hand.
We may watch cartoons, but we don't watch our language. Discretion is advised. Welcome, listeners, to Animated Indulgence, where grown men watch cartoons. Tonight we are going to be focusing on seasons 1 through 3 of Regular Show. I am Airhammer.
I am Deus.
I'm Mojoric, and we have a special guest today, Crimsonnn.
I'm Crimsonnn.
He's Crimsonnn.
Crimsonnn. He is mysterious and red. Would you like to give us more?
I am Crimsonnn. I am a Twitch streamer. I stream a lot of platformers, RPGs. I stream about anything. I'm a partner on Twitch, and it's kind of my living. I used to go weekly, but now I go only 4 days a week. Change my schedule up a little bit, and I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. It's a good hobby. Talking to people, sharing my experiences, and I love cartoons.
Damn
Awesome.
straight you do.
We'll make sure to have a link to your channel in the show notes.
So what are we're starting with our typical spoiler-free section, right?
There aren't really any spoilers to give, but I suppose the general description is in order.
I guess, yeah, we could acknowledge that as part of the first general description, and that there will be no spoiler-free section this show, this episode. Like, there's nothing to spoil. It's purely episodic with the barest minute parts of continuity. Like, characters remember that each other exist. Yeah.
So how does one even describe Regular Show? It is not regular. We know that for sure. The show focuses on a couple of anthropomorphic animals, Mordecai, who's a blue jay, and Rigby, who's a raccoon, and they work at a park. They're both 23 years old, and they're not very bright. There's, of course, a wacky cast of characters that they follow along with. Among their boss is Benson, who is a living gumball machine. Try to wrap your head around that one. So every episode is just wacky antic after another.
It's a modern set, well, vaguely modern set show. It's an episodic comedy. It does focus almost entirely on the comedy and rarely on any real drama. It's a short format show, which means the episodes typically run for 11 or so minutes. It's character driven, but comedy is a big part of it, and it derives a lot of that from bizarre twists. It has anthropomorphic animals as characters, but they coexist alongside humans to the point where they're basically humans.
In
They're
fact,
basically humans.
Mordecai has called himself, like, wait, we're human. They're birds, but, like, no one... like, he's a bird, but no one treats him as if he's a bird. It's just a thing. No one references it. It's not brought up at all.
Like, there are plenty of other birds in the show, but he doesn't fly. Well, at least from the episodes we saw.
They pretty much live their life like any other human. They have their job at the park. And
They play video games.
They play video games. They have fun. They love music.
The
They're pretty
only
much like any other person.
Yeah, the only thing that makes Mordecai a blue jay is the fact that he's a blue jay. like nothing else about him is a blue jay other than he's a blue jay. Like, if that makes any sense, like, get your mind around that sentence, because it makes no sense because it's Regular Show. That's the point. It doesn't make sense.
It's basically them wearing costumes all the time and forgetting they had the costumes on for the last 20 years.
Yeah, basically. That'd be a weird twist for Regular Show. Like the last episode, a human just crawls out of Mordecai's mouth. Like, I'm ready for a change
Go
of
with
clothes.
your own kind. Learn to fly.
Like, every person... It's just oh, man. Regular Show turns out to be really weird if it's just a show about furries. Well, I guess we summed it up, basically. What we expected of it, I guess. We can go on. I don't even remember what I said. I just knew it was going to be
Neither
episodic.
do I.
So we're going to talk about our expectations for Regular Show. For me, I know that it's it's something I'm going to have to get over eventually, because it's something I really don't care for, is anthropomorphic animals. I don't understand the point, really, a lot of the time. So I know it has that element to it. But that's besides the point. One thing I am intrigued about, and I know it's supposed to be about, like, these guys just at work a lot of the time. Just guys hanging out at work. I'm intrigued to see, like, how that plays into it. I've seen a couple episodes. I'm wondering if there is going to be any overarching narrative or not. I don't know that there will be, but I have hope. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't know what my expectations are because I've only seen one clip. So if you insert the from, that basketball clip right there, that's my expectation. If the whole show is just that on a loop, I'll be fine. The characters are too bizarre to me to think that this show lasted 8 seasons and might still keep going. I don't know. That scene was weird enough. You've got, a blue jay and a badger or something that are...
A raccoon, maybe? I don't know what he's supposed to be.
Yeah, probably a raccoon.
And, yeah. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say, I will defend its weirdness as possibly still being enjoyable later, because you said the same thing about Steven Universe. You said something about the character designs just made you not interested, right?
Yeah.
And now look, you literally just got done saying to us that you were rewatching the show for a second time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe you will end up liking it. Maybe we all will. I don't know. It's hard to know what we're going to expect.
I think my expectations are a little lofty for this show because in my mind it's in the same family as Adventure Time, which I know and love. It's sort of in the same time frame that it released. It's been going on for nearly the same amount of time. Obviously, it's got quite the following. If it stood so long, I'm curious about it because all I've ever seen is, I think, 2 or 3 clips. I've never seen an episode. I don't know if it's got much in the way of continuity, but I suspect there is, but it's not at the forefront. I don't know what to make of the characters or relationships. I feel like the friendship of the 2 main characters will probably be one of the central themes of it. And maybe tension between them will cause some of the narrative to come out. Maybe they'll be rivals. I don't know. It's a mystery to me in some ways, but I have fairly set expectations just based on the other shows airing at the time in the same block. How every time I hear Adventure Time, I hear a regular show as the natural second mention. I think there's going to be some sort of appeal between the 2 shows that carries over. I'm quite a fan of Adventure Time. I want to see what similarities it has and why it appeals to so many Adventure Time fans, and if I like it too.
It's definitely part of a family of shows. It's part of a family of shows with Adventure Time and later Steven Universe. That half-format show. It has that in common. And it had a lot of common talent.
Exactly, and I feel like that is something that sets expectations rather high and also locks it into place in a certain direction. I also suspect with the name like regular show, we'll see anything but regular things happen. I don't expect a whole lot of drama, maybe once in a while, but I expect much more of a comedy. Probably more of a comedy than even Adventure Time.
Yeah. I don't expect any big, gigantic plot points. Like, we gotta defeat the monster next time on regular show.
I'm pretty sure they'll do that once as a joke.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I guess that sums it up. Back to Future. Like,
I know, I expected, since it's in the same family as Adventure Time, I expected weird, but not this style of weird. I expected a lot more continuity between episodes, because I heard it had some story later on and less early on. I didn't expect 0 early on. I'd heard it had some story and expected at least some threads of connection. The only real continuity is Easter eggs, but from earlier episodes.
Yeah, there's a vague love storyline with Mordecai and Margaret, but other than that, there's basically nothing to string anything together. They work at a park.
They goof off a lot.
Yeah. There's no
as
real...
much as possible.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really expect much. I just knew it was along the same veins as you. I expected some continuity, and I guess we got, like I said, we got the barest tinges with the relationship stuff, but that's about it.
Yeah, when it
Very
comes to expectations, I
You-
kind of expected it to be like, the old cartoons back in the 90s, 2000s, like the early 2000s, like Dexter's Laboratory and
Ed,
Powerpuff
Ed, and
Girls. They're Ed and Eddie. They're usually like the episode is based around one idea, and then there's like a follow up and a solution. Like there's a
Yeah.
problem that usually ends up being someone else's, fault or their own fault, and then they fix it. That's how all the old cartoons were.
Yeah, it's
And I love this.
episodic. Yeah, all those shows have the same thing in common. They're they're episodic. They're like self-contained. You don't ever have to feel bad by turning on the show and worrying about, am I going to understand what the hell's going on? I missed the last 10 episodes.
You can indulge it easier.
Yeah, you just sit around and
Ooh, that name
digest.
drop.
You can
You
just sit around
sly
and
fella.
digest it a bit simpler. Yeah, our expectations were basically it's going to be episodic, and it was.
And the name regular show, it's just like Airhammer said, it's definitely not regular.
Yeah, it's done on purpose. Like,
It's irregular, if anything, because a lot of
It's
that does not
irony.
happen in real life.
irony thing.
It's blown out of proportion. That's what I love about it. I'm
Yeah.
always so excited. Like, what's gonna happen with this episode? Oh, we need to go pick something up. Oh crap, the world's gonna end. It's like,
Yeah, we'll get in. I guess we'll get into a little bit in the setting, but yeah, some weird shit just happens for no reason, and everyone accepts it's okay. Like, of course, playing rock paper scissors until you tie 100 times summons a demon. Duh, everyone knows that. Everything weird that happens. Sips is immortal because he has a deal with death. Duh, obvious. It's no biggie. Benson's a gumball machine. Who the fuck cares? All this weird shit, like, it's no one cares. It's just totally ignored. Everyone just assumes it's everyday life. It's kind of makes the twists at times a little out of nowhere, like, because they could literally just come out of left field, or just randomly out of nowhere. But the whole thing's a bit tangent, isn't it? We were still on expectations.
It's hard to put into words exactly what my expectations were, because I expected something with layers, something that would have been perhaps thought-provoking in one sense, but also pure entertainment if taken at face value. And this was more on the verge of pure entertainment. Rarely did it try to make any statements. And you know what? I think that's okay.
Yeah, not
think it
every
needed
show
to
has
be-
to have an agenda or a pushing a, not necessarily agenda, maybe that's not the right word, but pushing a statement. You put it best, statement. It doesn't need to be trying to make a point. It could be fun for the sake of being fun.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this show was. I was
Yeah,
it was a lot of
expecting
fun.
something a bit more complex than I got, and at first I was let down, but it's okay just to have fun.
not every show needs to be serious. You can just sit there and watch episode 1, watch episode 5, watch episode 9, and it's like, okay, I'm enjoying this. I don't have to watch them in order.
Yeah, in fact, regular show would be a perfect. If you ever if you ever had all your favorite shows like archived somewhere, and you just wanted a playlist of stuff to have on in the background, on randomized, kind of like a music playlist, but videos. The entirety of regular show almost can fit in there because there's very few two-parters, and if they are two-parters, they're stitched together by nature because they were released that way.
Yeah, like they're over 30 minutes, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so like
There's some specials.
you could literally watch them in any order and not be, because they're all self-contained. It's really neat.
Another
Wanna-
expectation I had was during this time with all these cartoons like Regular Show and Adventure Time, a lot of them are really story-driven based. This one kind of goes away from that.
Yeah, but a crazy amount. There's no story at all. I guess we'll handle each
Is
character
there-
individually, since that's kind of the biggest draw of the show, the characters, I would argue.
It would be a crime not to talk about Mordecai first. I feel like
Yeah.
if any one character is the star of the show, it's him.
Yeah, by far. I'd go far as to say that Mordecai is the main character of the show. I know a lot of people would say Mordecai and Rigby, and I guess it's somewhat argued. If there is a secondary main character, it's by far, it has to be Rigby because he's featured the most, you know. But Mordecai, in my eyes, makes the show. Like, we're following it through Mordecai's eyes. We essentially follow him 99% of the time, right? We're invested in the small amounts of continuity that there is. The very, very minute parts that there are is usually involving him. You know, his little romancy stuff with Margaret or the random crap he's going through. Yeah, Mordecai is the main central point of the show, I feel. Do you guys think so?
I feel that they're more of a duo because every episode does revolve around Mordecai, but Rigby ends up making his life miserable.
That's
Something
if there's
you
one
said.
thing Rigby's good about is making Mordecai's life miserable.
He's like a little bro that's just annoying, but you gotta love him. That's why I put them together. They're definitely a duo.
Yeah, Mordecai's like the friend that you want, and then Rigby is that bad influence.
He's fun to be around, but you know that he's bad news.
Something you said, Mojo, really resonated with me. When you said that we see the world through his eyes, I completely agree. I think Mordecai is the point of view that the viewer can identify with. In all this craziness, Mordecai is your focal point. He's your anchor. You can revolve around him and get a better viewpoint of what's going on and a better idea of how to feel about it.
And
He's
I
very
would say
relatable.
And I'd say it's very much purposely done that way because if you think about it, Mordecai is the most relatable in every way. He is kind of like Rigby in that he wants to slack off, but out of the two of them, who is always the one that eventually says, okay, we need to actually get the work done, right? It's Mordecai. Mordecai. Eventually, he'll come around and say, hey, Kate, we slacked off, we got to do the shit. So he's not completely lazy. He's kind to Pops most of the time, you know, and he wants to be kind to other people. He's kind of like a little bit of everyone else. He's like a very middle of the ground. He's not best at anything, but he is the most relatable because he's the most middle of the ground character. He's not extreme in any way.
I like that he's characterized more by his faults than he is by what he's good at. I think that makes him feel more real because as much as he's willing to face the big problems that he's afraid of, he hesitates to face his own personal problems and gets caught up in his own self-image and looking for the perfect moment too often. Kind of a pussy at times, too.
For how weird it is, it's also very real at times. Mordecai is a 23-year-old college dropout who's just trying to get by paycheck to paycheck, working for room and board and a paycheck. It's kind of very real at times. Especially for me, because I'm not exact situation, but I'm recently living on my own for the first time, worrying about paying bills, paying rent, and shit like that. I don't know. It's very real at times. It's interesting.
Yeah, people can definitely relate to Mordecai. He's the average person, the hardworking. Well, when he is hardworking, gets paid, pays his bills, lives his life day by day, just like you said.
Someone else to bring up Rigby.
He's a pain in the ass.
I hate him. I take it back. I hated him at first. For like the first 2 seasons, maybe 1 3/4 of a season. I don't know. He eventually starts to lighten up. But man, at the first, I'm so glad we decided to watch 3 seasons for this review because if we had just watched the first 2, this entire podcast would have been fuck Rigby. Remove him from the show. What the fuck? Deus and I talked about this quite a few times. We've been on call. And pretty much every time it dissolves into like, God damn, I hate Rigby. I don't know, he's just aggravating in every way. Let's just rewind. All your arguments about Steven and early Steven Universe, apply them to Rigby. He aggravates me.
Rigby's worse in a very different way. As much as Mordecai is an unmotivated slacker, Rigby is genuinely lazy, but also high energy. He will put effort into anything except for what he's supposed to do. He borders on a compulsive liar. He's neurotic. He is just this weird, uncomfortable little guy. He knows what he wants here and now, and that gets his focus.
I guess it fits his animal profile that he's a raccoon.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the other animals.
Aside from eating garbage.
I don't know if I'd put eating garbage past Rigby, though.
Well, yeah, what was that green juice drink thing that he made with pickles?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. It still came out of the fridge. He didn't lift it out of the garbage can.
It was garbage in the end.
In fact,
I will
Mordecai's
say-
the one that ate a hot dog off the ground.
I'm just saying. I will say, okay. In defense of Rigby, he is exactly what he's supposed to be. I can't say remove him from the show. The show wouldn't be this. I know when I was saying that earlier, obviously I was exaggerating. He does exactly what he wants to be, I guess. For certain types of viewers, they want him to someone to fucking just. God, he's so irritating. Just fucking kill him. Just Mordecai, you sleep in the same room with him. You could fucking snuff him out. Just fucking. Just put a pillow over his face. He's so annoying. I guess it's supposed to be. He is what he is. They did. God, they do it too well almost. I just Rigby gets me, man.
This is coming from a man who lives with a juggalo, so you know there's real rage.
Yeah.
I think Rigby's got a unique stance of being a main character, but also the antagonist. He causes the majority of problems in the show for the first 2.5 seasons.
Yeah,
Most of the things are his fault, his doing, because he was selfish, greedy, impatient, whatever fault you can
Or just
imagine.
stupid.
Just plain stupid.
What?
Whatever his fault is, whatever his vice is for the day, it causes some big problem.
Yeah.
And it spreads out to everyone.
So would you say he's the antagonist of the show?
For most of them, yeah, I absolutely would.
I feel he's an
It's
antagonist and as well as kind of a protagonist in some sense.
There's got to be.
So.
I want to
It's
look it
rare
up.
cases though.
I want to look it up at some point. There's got to be a term for that type of character. He's supposed to be a good guy. You're supposed to be rooting for him. He's friends with the people that you care about in the show, but he is the sole reason everything goes wrong all the time. They still love him. Like a Steve Urkel-like character, right? He's like a Steve Urkel character.
I didn't
Urkel.
make that connection, but yeah.
Did I do that?
Okay, here's why I classify him as an antagonist. Because the antagonist, at least in the truest sense, is the one that initiates change, and then the heroes have to go and try to fix it.
Yeah.
Rigby is that guy. He's always starting shit.
I bet it's
for
on
one
TV
reason
tropes.
or another.
I bet it's on TV tropes. There's a name for this thing. The antagonist that's also a good guy.
Well, he is an antagonist, but he's definitely not a villain. He is selfish, sure, but he's never out to hurt anyone other than just a mean-spirited prank once in a great while.
I guess that's the best way to put it. A non-villain antagonist.
Yeah, that is the way I would describe him. He doesn't mean to do harm, but he is so selfish and petty that he causes harm to others.
He's chaotic neutral on the alignment scale.
I would go so far as to call him evil, except to his close-knit group. He would never be wantonly evil to Mordecai, because that is a bond closer than brotherhood to him. He would never
Fair
hurt
enough.
Mordecai on purpose.
Literally closer than brotherhood. He likes Mordecai better than his own brother. Literally closer than brotherhood.
I think he's got this small community. He's got this insular family. He's dependent completely
Well, like the
on
main
Mordecai.
character, the main characters. There's Mordecai, Pops, Skips, Benson, Muscle Man, and High Five Ghost.
Yeah, I guess he also wouldn't do anything to wantonly harm Pops or Skips either.
Or Margaret, or Eileen.
He might harm Eileen if it meant to get him something free out of it.
Yeah, maybe. If we got him a free sandwich or something.
Yeah, if it got him a free sandwich for him to cook it, he'd probably do it.
Man, I think we're writing an episode of regular show right now. Someone offers, like a prankster shows up and offers Rigby a free sandwich if he trips Eileen, and he takes it up on it. And now Margaret's pissed, and Mordecai has to get Rigby back.
Yeah. Honestly, I've been doing that for the rest of the week. Just get free lunches.
I legitimately think I just wrote an episode of the regular show. You just gotta fill in all the bits.
Well, obviously we're missing the sandwich ghost that comes back for revenge.
Or something. Yeah.
The sandwich specter.
I didn't write the
random
twist.
guy that pops up like, "Hey, I can help you."
No. I think the best way to actually write an episode of regular show is I write what I just wrote, and then I give it off to someone totally different and say, "You write the twist." Write a twist without the beginning. Just write a reveal. You have no idea what you're revealing. You're just gonna write a reveal, and we're gonna stitch it to the end of it.
And then Skip says, I've seen this before.
Do you want to move on to Skips next? It's a good transition.
I suppose we could.
He's Mark fucking Hamill. We have to bring that up first.
Is that the actual voice actor?
Yeah,
Yes,
Mark Hamill.
Oh god.
Skywalker himself. and
Fucking
Skip.
Joker. Fucking Luke Skywalker.
I never
is
knew that. I actually
Skips.
didn't look at the voice actors.
Mordecai, which we didn't bring up, is basically self-insert, by the way. Mordecai is. I want to rewind back to that now that I think about it. He is voiced and kind of semi-based on by the creator of the regular show.
Yeah, I feel like him voicing that character adds a very genuine quality to Mordecai, and that's something that carries through most of the characters. All of them, or almost all of them, are very genuine, very true to themselves.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that back really quick before I forgot. So, we mentioned Skip's voice actor.
Skips he's a Yeti. He has a big, bulky upper body and really tiny little waist and legs. And he literally skips, hence the nickname. He looks ridiculous when he skips, in my opinion. And out of all those episodes, all 3 seasons, I think I only saw him walk normally once.
In a flashback, right? There's a... what was his name before Skips? Was it Runs?
I think Walks.
Or Walks. Or something like that, yeah. Yeah, his name, and he used to just walk everywhere or run everywhere. I can't remember. It was in an episode, and it showed a flashback. He's a Yeti. He's surrounded in mystery. Like, he knows, like, you kind of alluded to it earlier, Deis, but pretty much everything that comes up, Skip's reaction's like, I've seen this before. I know how to handle this. It's like the most weird thing ever. Like, literally anything can pop up, and Skip knows about it. Because this leads into the other thing about Skips, is that he's immortal. He's probably been around long enough to see everything. He's
a very wise character. Out of all the characters, he's like the wisest, the elder of them all. He knows everything, and he usually knows every solution.
Like I said, he's immortal. He is... I can't remember how well detailed it's gone into, but Skips is basically has some kind of deal with death, where death doesn't come and collect his soul, and he has to go... He's seen doing various weird, mysterious things, and a lot of times it's very heavily applied, if not said that he has to keep doing these things in order to stay immortal.
I found it really interesting because he is the handyman around the park and helps the other employees even with their personal matters. But he's also essentially the handyman for the mystical wheels of fate and all kinds of supernatural beings as well.
Yeah, he is God's handyman. He's like, when God's sink is broken, that's who they call.
I think he's also very interesting because for as long as he's been around in the park, he's also very distant in his personal matters. He never really talks about how he has acquired all of this experience with anyone. Yeah. I know there was an episode about his birthday where he didn't want anyone to celebrate his birthday because he had to do some mystical seance in the woods. But there's also the implication that he just didn't tell anyone about his need to do this mystical seance. He was that private of an individual. I think that speaks to his character quite a lot.
Yeah, I think, again, this might lead back into Mordecai being the focus of the show. To me, I got the impression that it was hidden from Mordecai and Rigby. Because Mordecai and Rigby are the new ones there. Skips, Pops, Benson, Muscle Man have been around for a while, right? Maybe some of them were aware. Not all of them, of course. Some of them went along with trying to set up birthday stuff. But maybe they had some idea Skips does weird stuff.
That may well be true.
We're seeing through Mordecai's eye.
It's not the only instance of him being a very private individual.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm not trying to argue against that. I'm just saying that maybe it's not all that. Sorry, just a thought.
No, it's accurate. I think the statement rings true. He's a private individual who doesn't share his own problems, despite everyone sharing their problems with him. And sort of makes him feel, well, as I said, all the characters are genuine. All of them feel real in some way. And that grounds him. He's almost afraid to seem vulnerable. He doesn't like seeming weak. There was a time in one episode Rigby was pranking him with arm wrestling. And it really got under Skips' skin that he lost.
Yeah, he wasn't number one anymore.
I think that's the episode where I saw him walking. When he was training and left the house, he was walking normally when he went to the door.
I wonder if they messed up.
Yeah, or maybe he's just so depressed. He was so depressed that he decided not to skip. Which I can't. Spoiler alert! A little bit. I've skipped ahead a little bit of season 3 because I'm going to be recording for something else as well. But I can't remember if it's in season 4 or not. But it's revealed why he skips. There's a plot. There's a plot line about Skips. Why do you skip all the time? That's for another episode.
I demand spoilers.
It's just this whole thing about a whole love person. This is a whole backflash. Just another time.
Well, when I see him as like one of the characters in the park, he's always the He always looks angry or grumpy. No matter what he's doing, even if he's having like a good time, he always looks grumpy. I don't know why.
Smiling.
Yeah, I guess that's his personality. He's just there to do his job, but
He is very serious.
Did we all talk about Skips? Do you want to move on to Pops or Benson?
Pops, I guess. Pops is an anthropomorphic lollipop.
Is he actually a lollipop? Is that canon?
I think so. Like, his head is that big, and
I thought he was like a mutant human.
He likes lollipops, and his head obviously looks like one. But is that actually a thing? I need to look. I
think he is one.
I don't think he's necessarily a lollipop, but he's definitely got an affinity for them, and he's got a body shaped like one.
And he carries them in his wallet and tries to use them as currency.
Okay, I gotta clarify this, because it's not that he's trying to pass this off as currency. He firmly believes that these are worth money. He believes these butterscotch lollipops are legal tender. He thinks he's handing you out $100 bill.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like, they are currency to him.
He's trapped in like the 1920s or something. His mind is like a silent movie. He has the old-fashioned car and stereo and phone and bicycle, and he talks that way, and he must be, I think he's a lollipop because he looks nothing like the other humans on the show. His father owns the park, so Pops is basically the number 2 guy there. So he's over Benson. But he doesn't really do anything. He just kind of hangs around, and he appears occasionally and gets into weird antics with everybody else. But he's trapped in the past.
My notes for him is that he's odd, obviously. He's bizarre in different ways than all the other characters. One thing I like about this show is that all the characters are bizarre, except Mordecai, I would say. Mordecai is the only normalish one out of the main cast. Everyone else is bizarre. Pops is bizarre in a totally different fucking way. He's just... I don't think Pops is capable of being mean. He's just pure happiness and good. From every example I've seen of him, he's just, like, almost incapable of being angry at times.
He's the most selfless of all the people who work at the park.
Yeah.
Like, whenever something goes wrong, he always wants to fix it, as well as he never wants to harm anybody.
He believes in the good in people. He always sticks up for Mordecai and Rigby, even when they do really stupid things.
Yeah. He's always trying to get Benson to be nicer to Mordecai and Rigby. He never hesitates to help Mordecai and Rigby with whatever random nonsense they're in for the day. Pops is like just the nicest person at the entire park. And one of my favorite characters, probably.
Yeah, I put him higher on my list of characters.
He's absolutely delightful.
And I enjoy drawing him too. In my little sketchbook, I've drawn Pops 4 times now.
He's an
He's
eternal
super
optimist.
fun and simple.
I think to say he's trapped in the past might be an exaggeration, because he's willing to try new things. He enjoys trying new things. I don't know how old he's supposed to be. I don't know if all this stuff from the 20s or 1900s was something he grew up with, something he's used to, and he's not been able to adapt. If he's older than that and he thinks it's modern,
it has
or
something
if
to
he
do
just
with
enjoys
his dad. Think about it, because his dad's kind of similar, old-timey. Doesn't talk
an
exactly
interesting
the
part
same,
of his.
He's also a jerk.
His dad's a jerk.
So he's like the kind of the opposite of his dad. He's kind-hearted.
Yeah.
He's also childish and naive. Pops is
That's
very
actually a good point.
childish.
He's very naive. I wouldn't have thought to mention that, but it's true. He's probably the most likely to get suckered into something.
Very, very gullible.
Not necessarily out of pure stupidity, but just because he trusts everyone.
He's very trusting. He's the kind of person who is elated by the beauty of the everyday. He absolutely loves seeing sunsets and butterflies.
And he loves injecting the good in everything. He went to a rap battle and just rhymed like flowery happy poetry instead of like it's so good.
I think he's very sensitive. We've seen him be sad and upset before, and I think that what would be his greatest weakness in the real world turns out to be a strength there, because his sensitivity makes other people that care about him act better. It makes them better people because they don't want to upset him. He is just genuinely a positive influence on everyone around him.
Pops, in a way, holds the whole group together. Without Pops, they'd all be like...
They'd be miserable.
It'd all fucking just dissolve into everyone killing each other.
Yeah, it'd be very cutthroat.
Next character is Benson. He is the park manager. He makes sure everything's in line, that no one's slacking off. But, well, he knows everyone's slacking off, but he can't really do much about it because it seems like everyone else at the park always has their own idea of what they want to do. They're supposed to be raking the leaves today, but instead they're not. They're playing video games. You know, Mordecai and Rigby, they work there. But yeah, Benson's very, very hot-tempered. He gets angry very easily. Always threatens to fire anyone who messes up. He never actually does.
Or he'll fire them and then hire them back within the episode.
Oh yeah, he's like, I regret that.
That's happened a couple times too. He's all talking. He's like a lovable jerk. He seems like he's an asshole trying to ruin the fun all the time, but he in his own way is trying to get Mordecai and Rigby to better themselves. He's trying
to be like a role model.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And also, Benson lives alone. He
lives outside the park, actually. I think
he lives in an apartment outside the park. And he doesn't really socialize that much. He just works and then he goes home and does his thing. Sits in a bathtub.
Yeah, as we mentioned, he's an anthropomorphic gumball machine. He's literally just a gumball machine with a face, arms, and legs. He doesn't
His gumballs change colors at time depending on how angry he is.
I've never noticed that.
Well, if he's angry, he glows bright red, but you don't really see any individual balls.
The line on his gumballs, which are implied to be the gumballs themselves, turn red.
He doesn't necessarily wear any clothing.
But neither. It's like clothing is something I'm going to bring up later. Continue.
Like, there's an episode where it looks like he just had a shower and he accidentally drops the towel or something, and the little metal flap where the gumball would come out is up, and that's supposed to imply genitalia or something. Other than that, he looked the same as he always does. So I don't know. That was embarrassing for him.
I guess I can go into it right now. Clothing is by far the most used throwaway passing joke in this show. There's a lot of reoccurring jokes, but clothing, like the fact that Mordecai and Rigby, 99% of the time they run around naked, and no one comments on it because they're a giant fucking bird or raccoon or whatever. It doesn't matter, they're naked. Who cares? Say, make sure to dress up for that party, and he suddenly feels the need to get clothes on. Or there's one point where there's something forcing them to tell the truth. This might be a season 4 episode, I don't know, but they're trying to force them to tell the truth, and Mordecai goes, "I'd like to go commando, a lot." And it's like, wait, you're naked 90% of the time. Like, clothing is a throwaway joke they use all the time in the show, and it's stupid, silly. They don't always bring attention to it, and it's very cleverly done.
The world is just weird. As we said, there are humans, but most of the characters that we see on the show are anthropomorphic something or other. Benson being a gumball machine, his family were all gumball machines. He has a friend that we see in a flashback in one episode that's also a gumball machine, and one of Benson's rivals is an anthropomorphic vending machine. So, yeah.
Benson is a character that's high-strung and has anger issues more than anything else. He is angry almost all the time, unhealthy in a lot of respects. He will get furious at the least little thing, and he's also a terrible manager. I'd like to point that out. As a student of business, his method of motivating his employees by being a dick to them and threatening to fire them all the time and not following through any is absolutely dreadful. Don't be like Benson.
Then there's times where he rewards them in a way, and it ends up being a plot for the episode.
He tries to, in his own way.
He tries his best, but
if you actually do these things, we'll give you this. And the episode eventually becomes, how can we get this thing without doing the things he wanted us to do?
Also, he can be kind of mean and vindictive at times. He really resents Mordecai and Rigby for not doing their jobs. His job is his life. He treats that position, that occupation, as his identity. It means way too much to him. He is so work-focused. One of my most memorable moments for Benson is when Rigby puts himself in a coma. It has nothing to do with work. It's something he did on his off time. And Benson's just out of line, says, well, maybe if he focused more on his job, he wouldn't be in a coma. And Mordecai just punches him right in the face with his life. He deserved it. I like Benson quite a lot, but when Benson got out of line, Mordecai punched him right in his face. And I really liked that scene.
One time he got so angry at Mordecai and Rigby that Pops was threatening to tell his father about it, write him up. And eventually the anger was so extreme that he started to like destroy the environment because he wasn't allowed to vent his frustration.
I don't think that's a feature of Benson in particular. I think that's just a feature of regular show being regular show. Any character kind of penting up their frustration would have had that happen.
Yelling is not a healthy way of venting frustration.
I disagree.
There are worse ways, but I don't think it's the best way.
I'm just gonna have to leave it there.
You know what?
disagree.
I'm outnumbered here. I'm outnumbered.
Crimsonnn and I outnumber you.
I forgot my company. I'm sorry.
I can relate Mojo being sort of like Benson, for sure.
Okay, there's worse characters to be. If I had to take the which regular show character are you quiz, I'd be okay with Benson. If I got Rigby,
you
I'd
did
probably
Benson.
I'd do the test again. Get to work. You're fired.
Well, here's the thing. This is a show called The Regular Show. It's obviously very weird. It's got lots of weird characters. However, there are other shows airing around the same time, contemporary shows. One of those shows is The Amazing World of Gumball. Why is the Gumball machine not in The Amazing World of Gumball and instead in the regular show? Get your shit together, show creators. What the hell? Do you know how confusing that would be if you just skim through the channels, see Benson talking, and then see up next, Amazing World of Gumball. Oh, this must be Gumball. No, this is regular show. The Gumball machine is not in the Amazing World of Gumball. I'm sorry.
The Amazing World of Gumball is that the one about the it's really like blue and orange, colorful creatures?
It's not Benson. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because it was very frustrating for me that this character he's got the wrong imagery for the show he's in. He could have been anything else. His appearance doesn't matter.
That's the point. The only reason you're upset is because there's a show called The Amazing World of Gumball. We have no context of whether or not that show came out after the fact.
Nothing about him hinges on him being a gumball machine. It's
Nothing
purely visual.
Yeah, I know. And he was just happened to be a gumball machine, and then Amazing World of Gumball just happens to air on the same channel.
And it's frustrating.
Benson's always been a gumball machine.
I hope he at least had a cameo or something in one of those episodes.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Cartoon Network loves to do a lot of crossovers. I hope Benson was a cameo in there.
That would be cool.
Speaking of him being a gumball machine, the origin of him being a gumball machine was from an animated short that Mojo found.
We'll link and talk about both the kind of precursors. There's a few of them that kind of led up to the show.
So it's not totally random that he's a gumball machine. It's actually planned, which honestly blew my mind.
Those aren't canon to the show. Those aren't actual parts of the show. They're just kind of like show that he's had the ideas of what these characters are going to be for a long time. We've got sidetracked quite a bit. Do you want to talk on Muscle Man? Your favorite character in this entire show, Dais?
Sure, I'll start this out. Muscle Man and his sidekick, High Five Ghost, and no matter what you say, High Five Ghost is just a sidekick. He might get development later.
He is.
But he is pure sidekick. More than Rigby is a sidekick by a long shot. They are obnoxious frat boys. They are white trash, live in a trailer with a engine block in the front yard. Muscle Man in particular is argumentative, abrasive, disparaging. He continuously pulls these mean-spirited pranks. He's overweight despite his nickname of Muscle Man. He's this weird little green Frankenstein-looking human.
He's kind of goblin-esque, is what I think of him as.
He always pulls off his shirt and waves it around and shows off his saggy moobs. He's basically feces in human form. He's unlikable.
Yeah, I thought he was the ugliest cartoon character ever. And to be honest, in the first few episodes,
and then
he
you
doesn't
met
really have
Starla.
a lot of lines. Yeah. in the first few episodes, he
I knew where you were going with this before you even went anywhere with it. You were gonna say, you said he was the ugliest character you saw, and then I'm like, yep. Then he saw Starla.
I honestly thought that Muscle Man was this really tiny, ugly woman in the first few episodes because he never really spoke? Or did we learn his name for how long? And then I'm finally hearing, wait, this is a guy? And yeah, it's like the mullet, the look, the moves. I thought, okay, this is the ugliest character I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Muscle Man is an oddity amongst oddities. We've talked a lot about how this show is just absolutely weird. Muscle Man... What is Muscle Man? He's the super obnoxious... Yeah, you said it best. He's a frat boy. He thinks he's funny, but he's not. He has this like reoccurring gag where he talks about how everyone loves my mom jokes, and he'll end like, do you know who else does insert thing that just happened? Wait for a second.
My mom, and everyone laughs too. They all accept it, and then it's not funny.
Rigby just got done flipping a hamburger. Muscle Man's line is, "Do you know who else flips hamburgers really well? My mom." That's Muscle Man's gag.
Yeah, there was one episode where they actually called him out on the joke, and he calls in a guy that acts like his brother, and they're like, were you just making fun of our mother? And they get all pissed at them, and God, that was a weird episode.
I think that was his brother.
Yeah, it is his brother.
Well, if it is, he's not green. He's at least normal.
He also came from hell, right? He came from a truck from hell. What? Where's your coming from, Muscle Man?
His real name is Mitch. He has a girlfriend named Starla that is even uglier than him. And
basically a clone of him.
He has... Deis alluded to it and talked about it. He has a sidekick called High Five Ghost, who is infinitely more interesting, better than Muscle Man.
Yeah,
but he
kind of looks like a Pac-Man ghost, but white, and he has a hand coming out of his head.
He has a High Five Ghost has a brother as well, Low Five Ghost.
Low Five Ghost.
He's only made one appearance, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
It was a Halloween episode, I believe.
He's very side character, but he's, like I said, he's more interesting than Muscle Man.
His name is Muscle Man, but he's not very muscular. He's more flabby, if anything.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
But he's kind of he's the hardest working person at the park for sure. He does all the hard
Besides
labor.
Skips.
Oh yeah, of course. Skips is more of I always see him working on cars for some reason.
Let it be said, though, that Muscle Man is what Mordecai and Rigby want to be. And that is not a good thing. Muscle Man, it's shown in some episodes, and if you pay attention, Muscle Man does his work, but he does it in such a way he's lazy efficiently. He's like, how can I get this fucking thing just done out of the way so I can be lazy? He's what Mordecai and Rigby wish they could do if they weren't so lazy. But there are other characters, other side characters too you want to bring up while we're here, I guess. There's Margaret, that's the biggest side character, I'd say. That's Mordecai's love interest. She is a pink bird instead of a blue jay.
She's a red robin.
Yeah, red robin. She works at the local cafe, restaurant place. They go for coffee and sandwiches. She works with what is she? Eileen is a...
She is a mole. This got very confusing for me when I first saw her, because she just looks like this short little girl with what appeared like a barely visible beaver tail in behind her, and I thought, are you human? I wasn't sure, so I had to look her up on Wikipedia, and she's a mole. She definitely doesn't look like an animal of any kind.
And she's super nerdy stereotype girl. She's very much reminiscent of the nerdy scientist-esque girl in Undertale.
Mordecai has his crush on Margaret, whereas Eileen has a crush on Rigby, but he kind of brushes her off at first.
Yeah, there's a love parallelogram going on there.
Parallelogram. I like that.
Yeah. Margaret wants to help Eileen get with Rigby, but Rigby has no interest. And Rigby's trying to be a good wingman for Mordecai while he is making his moves on Margaret. And she doesn't seem to care.
Yeah, Margaret is... they eventually kind of have a romancy thing where they get together, and it's a lot more fleshed out. There's episodes about Mordecai trying to work up the courage to kiss her. It's several... that's why I brought up the point that there is vague continuity, vague connections between episodes. It can still be watched in whatever order because it's so vague that you don't really have to pay care that much. there is development, especially between the characters, and Mordecai and Margaret is where the biggest connection is, obviously, in my mind, where their relationship, if you will, gets closer and closer to actually becoming a relationship. Yeah, Margaret is... I'm going to throw this out here. Margaret is not the love interest that I actually have the interest in actually seeing as a character, because they, in one episode, as a one-off character as far as I know, I haven't looked ahead and I haven't seen her being reintroduced, there was a love interest as character hinted at named CJ, and she was a cloud, an anthropomorphic cloud, and when she got angry, she got stormy and caused rainstorms and stuff. And she was voiced by the same chick that does Wendy from Gravity Falls. She's just as amazing as Wendy. Like, she's just seems like a infinitely more interesting character. She is like everything in interest with fucking Rigby, likes to play video games, into nerdy shit. Goddamn, I ship Mordecai and CJ.
I'm gonna catch that.
I don't know. CJ is a cool character, but she's just there. She's got such little screen time. I couldn't make a connection with her.
My point is, I want her to have more screen time. The hint that I got of her got me interested enough that I wish she became a more character. Maybe she is. Maybe she's re-implemented later. I don't know. You're more familiar with the show, Crimsonnn. You've seen later episodes.
Yeah.
Is she ever brought back?
She is brought back.
Sweet. I'm in for it. I'm up for it. I'm happy. I was already going to watch the rest of the show anyway. Let's be honest. I was on that path anyway. I'm already almost done with season 4, beyond the scope of this episode.
Well, I don't know. Honestly, the side characters in most shows are the ones that endear me the most, and in this show, I think they're the characters that endear me the least. I don't think
I agree for the most part. Margaret and Eileen and any of the other, besides Death is awesome. All the other side characters are very mediocre, but I did see, maybe it's just the allure of that she's the same voice actress of a character I really, really liked in another show I recently watched. That's probably a big part of it. I fully admit that. But I'm interested enough that I'm glad that she comes back later.
I feel like a lot of them are plot devices more than people. Margaret, for the most part, despite all of her lines and scenes, is really meant to just be the romantic pursuit. And
Yep.
I wish she had more character beyond that. I wish there was more to her. There probably is later, but in the first 3 seasons, they did a disservice to a lot of their side characters by not fleshing them out and not giving them any real personality. I don't like seeing people as plot devices.
That is something I noticed, and it does slightly start to get better toward the end of season 3. It's starting to get better into where I'm at, and I'm assuming it's only going to get even better, or maybe, hopefully it does. Characters still get a little bit more bits of backstory, more reasons to care about them. Margaret's story's fleshed out a bit more. She's going through stuff about what college to go to. Having to move away, there's an episode about that. There's more. She's gotten more fleshed out.
A good example of a character that was shown very poorly was Gene, the vending machine rival of Benson.
Oh, yeah.
He exists just to be a rival to Benson.
Yep.
He is one-dimensional, and I really dislike it when shows do that. I would like to see something more to him. I understand that it's a short format, they don't have time for it, but it's disappointing when all you see of a character is this one-dimensional facade as a plot device.
So I'm going to put this forward now, maybe. Well, here now. I'm going to continue with regular show. It's already been said, right? And if I think it improves enough, I'm going to move later, depending on how much I enjoyed it, that we're going to do more episodes, or at least another episode. If we have to do the rest of the regular show, or maybe do another 4, or maybe do another 2 episodes, splitting up the rest that's left into 2 things. I don't know. But if it's good enough after I watch it, we might revisit it, because at least one of us is going to watch it all to know whether or not it's worthy.
One more thing about Margaret. Earlier, in the season, she's always seen with other guys, and really used to make Mordecai feel jealous.
Yeah.
That's one thing I didn't really like.
Like they had said, she's very much just there to give Mordecai something to pine over, and that begins with her being with
I get
other
that he
guys.
likes her. They make that very clear. They communicate that well. They communicate a lot of things well. I just wish they would have had it shown why he likes her. I wish they would have shown that he's truly interested in her as a person and sort of not objectified her as much. It would have been a lot more interesting to see him go about it wrong and then figure it out and eventually go about it the right way based on who she is, but we never get a good look at who she is.
I feel like some of it's we're only seeing cuts of I think it's implied that they're hanging out and they
It
like
is.
each other. They're friends. He's not just pining after her just because she's the only girl he knows. The only happens to be the only other bird person. She's in the show solely for his. She was written into the show solely for Mordecai, but from Mordecai's perspective, he interacts with her and.
Well, I only
They're
have the
friends.
perspective of an audience member, and as viewing from the audience, I don't get that part. I get the very narrow snapshot of what
Fair
they
enough.
present in the episodes, and that just isn't enough to satisfy me.
Fair enough. Yeah, it is lacking. I will not argue against that. I guess we've kind of exhausted characters. Do you want to move on to something else?
Sure.
Would you
Let's
guys
move
like
on.
to talk about the setting and a lot of the weirdness?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna link time frame into the setting as well. I wrote down in this section that some of the early episodes. I know this is weird to say after we just gone so much about how they can be watched in any order, but if you're trying to pay attention and trying to grasp any bits of continuity, some of the very, very, very early episodes almost feel like they're a little bit out of order. Like they make references, very vague references. I don't have any specific examples. I should have left better notes, I guess. But what do you guys think about when this show is set?
I think it's obviously modern. They have smartphones, but it's an 80ized version of the modern world. It's as if there's been some prevention of progress or some stagnation of technology or something, because there's a lot of references to very, very 80s existence. I don't think it is in the 80s, though. I think they do have mostly modern stuff. They mentioned standard definition televisions that they have as if there were HD TVs. They have smartphones. There's enough evidence that it is reasonably modern, but it's a flavor of modern.
I'm gonna throw this stupid, crazy idea. It's not an actual idea for how it is in the canon, but just an idea of how it runs in my mind. You know how steampunk is kind of like the idea of like old steam type technology brought way further than it actually could have logically gone, doing like stuff way beyond what it's actually supposed to be. But everything is still kind of feels like it would have been. They're like, hey, this is our super high-tech supercomputer, but it's steampunky. It has fucking gears and shoots fucking steam outside of it. You know, they make stuff that in the genre of steampunk, the style of steampunk, they make stuff from an old-timey era look like it's doing new stuff. What if this is like a 80s, 90s era scaled forward like steampunk? Like they're smartphones, but they look like they're still in the 80s. Like they look like old phones, at least from what I've seen. Like everything looks like it's old. They're trapped in an older area, but it's still modern.
It's Atari punk.
Atari punk. I like it. 80s punk. That's something different. But like Atari punk, I like the idea. I don't know, it's just an idea I had. I have it written down, a vague outline of what I was talking.
I think you're onto something. I think that's the general idea they have for the setting. It's peculiar, but I like it.
So that was something I was sitting on. I thought it was a neat idea. That's why I was insistent on putting time frame here. But yeah, the setting is pretty simple. It takes place at the park. The setting's the
and
park.
everything around the park, the city,
and the city around the park. And I guess eventually in space, whatever the hell that means, it's like a state park or like a national like
city park.
Probably like a city park,
right?
Yeah, city park. I don't know exactly. It's not. Yeah, probably city park. It's a big open thing. There's trees. It looks like there's places to camp. There's like trails and pathways, places to play sports and shit with each other. There's
a pond with a dock.
It's vaguely Northern California, I guess.
Yeah, and they have the house that they live in, like a boarding house thing that's on the park property.
I think we can assume it's Pops' house. He probably owns the house and rents the rooms to employees.
And Rigby live in the house.
Benson does not. He lives in an apartment.
Yeah, he lives in an apartment.
Pops. Who did I say? Pops, Rigby, and Mordecai is what I meant. Live in the house. Muscle Man lives in a trailer on the park property. I think he with High Five Ghost. Is High Five Ghost just living with Muscle Man? Who knows?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either.
That's how little screen time High Five Ghost gets.
He's just kind of in the background.
Benson, we already talked about Benson lives in the city outside the park. It's very never referenced, really. They go there, it's assumed that's where the shop that Margaret works at is at. It's just a nondescript city that the park happens to be in. The setting's very kind of boring. It's meant to be that way. It's the regular show. Doing regular things in the regular old park that has special rules about demons and alternate dimensions and when it's okay to have a musical montage.
Yeah, like, I try to understand exactly what this world is, because is it supposed to be reality or is it something else? Like, I was given the impression in one episode that maybe they were in a living video game. I think it's in episode 10 where the park is under audit and Rigby has to have his brother come and work on it. And when the deadline is approaching, everything that is owned by the park starts to turn into code and disappear. It's like, what am I watching?
I think
What is this world?
I'm going to go far to say that trying to draw any context about the setting, the time frame, the nature of the show of regular world is not going to work. The show directly contradicts, like, this weird thing happens because of this. Like, you can't play rock, paper, scissors in it because you'll summon a thing, but a couple episodes later they're playing rock, paper, scissors again. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I know. There's like 3 different episodes where Rigby dies and he always comes back. I think it was maybe in the first or second episode where they go to the moon and there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. And yet in the 6th episode, they're locked in a freezer and almost die from the cold. You were just in the vacuum of space. Yeah, we can go on about specific episodes as we go later.
Much.
But,
it's that way by nature. They've made the show so weird and bizarre, so every time they contradicted themselves, they could just say, "You realize that this talking Blue Jay's boss is a gumball machine, and you have a problem with them sitting in the freezer too long." It's so absurd you can't really question anything.
Actually, I had a question for you about the setting. What I noticed is there's only a very few sets, like the house, the park itself, the coffee shop. Hardly anything else appears with any real frequency. Did that annoy you on an aesthetic level? Because I don't feel like the art for those main sets was... it wasn't really well done compared to the way it could have been. It bothered me a little bit. Do you share that sentiment?
No, it didn't really bother me much at all. We have plenty of other cartoons where we'll have a primary setting and see other locations very briefly. I was quite content with what we saw.
It's interesting when you bring it up that way, Deus, because the sets are very static and they only really change when they... It's usually when you see a different set is when the twist happens and something weird happens. They're in another dimension, or they're visiting death, or something weird happens. That's when the sets change. They did not put any of their budget into the sets. Like, you're right, they're all very simple. All the money went into, let's be honest, licensing music. We'll get to that in a bit. I did notice that too. There's a lot of like standard sets. You see them all the time in the house. You see them all the time in that one particular spot in the park.
I would have loved to seen the common sets look a little nicer if they're going to be used over and over again throughout multiple episodes, multiple seasons even.
I like that though because it's very simple.
The other side of it is it gives a sense of familiarity. It's very simple. It's very okay. They're in their room. Boom, got it. I know exactly where they're at because I've seen that set 100 times.
And then you see the setting like get destroyed. And that's kind of cool. And then it comes back in next episode, all fine, like nothing happened.
They must be masters at rebuilding that house.
Well, they have to be. If they don't clean it up, they're fired.
Yeah. I kind of like how we subtly slipped into art there.
It's the visuals of the setting, right? The park is the place where 90% of this takes place. And I would have loved to see the visuals of the park get a little more love. I'd like to talk about another aspect of the show that I'm not sure exactly where to fit, but I think it fits in the setting because it's part of the atmosphere. There's a lot of thinly veiled alcohol references. I think 1 or 2 drug references that are very, very thinly obscured, and no shame in violence, no cowardice about depicting firearms. It feels like it was at some point meant to be more adult. But at the same time, I don't know that it would have worked well as a more adult show. I think it would have been cheaper. How do you guys feel about that? Especially you, Crimsonnn, because you've been into this for such a long time compared to the rest of us. We're all newbies. Do you think it would have been better as an Adult Swim type show? Or do you think it would have been a mess?
I feel it's appropriate for like a Cartoon Network show. I wouldn't say it's really aimed for kids. It's more aimed for teens and above. Because I feel fine watching this in my 20s. I can relate with all this stuff. It's very nostalgic in a way. Like there's a lot of references to video games and just having a good time. And they do occasionally use some, I guess you could say like sort of swear words, not really. Like they say pissed. Like, ooh, I'm pissed.
There's time where they practically cuss without cussing. What the H is going on in this S? With this S? or stuff like that. What the H is going on with this S is a line specifically said by Mordecai at some point. And you're right. Anytime they're drinking soda, swap it out with beers. I have an interesting thing to point out about the fact that you said this feels like an older show. And that I do feel like it's structured in such a way that teenagers are going to enjoy it, kids are going to like it. But I feel like the sub-targeted audience, if you will, is people our age. People between 20 and 30. That time frame of age right now. That's the kind of demographic it's aiming for, I think. In a way. Obviously, it's structured to be on Cartoon Network. If shows had like a sub-demographic they were shooting for, it would be this.
Yeah, I felt they did put this on like Adult Swim. I would still enjoy it, but it has more charm on regular Cartoon Network.
And it does, you're right, Daiz, it has ties into stuff like that, because like if you look at the two things that we talked about before, and we'll put them in supplemental media and links in the show notes for sure, but the two pilot things that we talked about, 2 in the AM PM is one of them called, and the other one is something Lollipop Land or something. Those are very much more adult. They're more along the lines with, one of them is like almost kind of Clerks. Those are very much more adult. And the next show, the guy who plays Mordecai and made regular show, the next show he's making is basically the spiritual successor of this show, aimed at an older audience, and it's going to be called Close Enough.
I didn't know that. Is it going to be a cartoon?
Animated show. It's basically a spiritual successor to regular show. It's supposed to be aimed at adults instead of teenagers.
So something like that would probably be on Adult Swim.
Yeah, I think it's a bit better where it is now in its silliness. If you were to add more adult themes, it could maybe be a bit of a turnoff, I suppose.
One thing I kind of like about this thing is, I like about it this way, is they can market it at kids. That way, you get enough people watching it to justify more stuff being made. But we all know that it's practically beer they're drinking. We know, the people who pay attention and know what the hell they're alluding to know it's not soda they're drinking. We could just go ahead and assume that it's supposed to be beer.
And let's be honest, when they took Benson to that party, the Mississippi Queen had a lot more stuff in it than the ingredient list that was depicted.
Yeah. I think you bring it up, that you put it in a good way, Airhammer, that if you were to put it up a notch, it might ruin it. Give them too much leeway, they might do too much. But like the level they're at now, they have to try to make it tame for kids, but still put in the hints to allure to what's actually going on, or what we can suppose is what's actually going on, to add a little extra enjoyment for ourselves.
Shall we step on into music and sound, or art and visuals? Do you guys have a preference for which to tackle first?
We were already kind of dipping away into art, so why not continue there?
I think the art style is simplistic, possibly to a fault. It certainly isn't overcomplicated, and I can appreciate that. It makes it easy to follow what's going on, even in the random clutter. One of my biggest complaints is in how they draw humans. The humans in the show are pretty ugly. We've mentioned Muscle Man being absolutely hideous. I agree with that, Airhammer. You were on point. There's nothing good about him, but I think the normal humans too are also kind of ugly. And while it is a style, I think it's always best if your animation looks good or has a reason to look ugly.
All the other humans are kind of lackluster. That's another thing that strangely enough, I actually had noted down. Non-odd characters, too ugly. That's what I wrote. I think it was a drunken note. But anyway, the characters that aren't people are all weirdly unique. They're very distinct. They're very eye-catching, at least to me. They all have something distinct about them that makes them pop out from everyone else. Pops has a giant weird head. Skips walks around in a weird way, and he's white. Mordecai is the only thing that's like that blue shade, and he really pops out. Rigby's a stupid little rodent. You should kick him.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Between you talking about Skips and talking about how Rigby is a rodent, have you guys noticed that the animation is remarkably consistent? Rigby always runs on all fours when he doesn't have something in his hand.
Yeah. They're really good at nice little touches like that. And Skips pretty much always skips. Like, there might be slight slips, like when he was sad or in flashbacks, but he always skips. They make sure, man, they're not going to get called out on it.
Where the style and art is lackluster, the animation is very strong.
It does have errors though. I have a screenshot I posted on the Animated Indulgence Twitter. It's a 420 plot reference joke, but it also like is done so poorly and at the last moment that it's like over the top. Like it's supposed to be on a clock, and the black overlay of the clock clips over Rigby's hand. It's kind of tacky. Maybe you shouldn't have done the joke if you're not gonna fucking commit and make it fit. If you're gonna do it so sloppy that it clips the damn animation, it's not worth your damn joke.
I noticed how Rigby's arms will sometimes double in length at random in a scene, and there's no explanation for it.
The main characters are all very, very unique.
Even Muscle Man, in his ugliness, he's unique and different. He pops out. You know Muscle Man when you see him. He's a horrible, shitty character, but at least he's distinctly the horribly shitty character.
The style is lacking, in my opinion. I can make excuses like, oh, it's supposed to represent how people are ugly, but no, this is a show you're supposed to look at. It's a very visual medium, and you need to use that the right way. You should at least make the characters fun to look at.
I will point out and say that while other shows that we have reviewed recently have failed on this front, this one certainly should not. The characters are emotive in their faces.
Yeah,
Man.
I think I'll lump that into animation being pretty good.
Yeah, I love... Just watch Mordecai's scared faces, weirded out faces. Mordecai's bird faces are all great. Anytime he's freaked out, horrified, he makes pretty funny faces. And you could tell it's very well emoted.
Considering he has a bird beak instead of a mouth, that's really impressive.
Yeah,
On the topic of the humans being ugly, I think they made them ugly on purpose. So then they're just pretty much a backdrop. They're just there, like an audience, an ugly audience. Then you want to focus on the main characters.
I considered that, but again, I feel like if you're going to make someone ugly, make them interesting ugly instead of ugly. Make them ugly in a way that you want to look at them, a way that's amusing.
Come to think about it, there are no major actual just human characters, right? All the major characters that we spend any time with at all. Okay, we have a blue jay, we have a raccoon, we have the humanoid lollipop, there's Skips, Benson, High Five Ghost. Muscle Man, I guess, is he human?
A green human.
Yeah, but like all the regular humans, maybe their ugliness is the shadow figures of early Ruby.
Yeah, but those were meant to not be looked at, and a lot of these are speaking characters, and I can deal with background characters being low detail. I think it's the details themselves that turn me off, and I get that it's intentional, but I still think it's done the wrong way intentionally. It's similar to Mike Judge's early work, and that's a major inspiration is Beavis and Butthead. I can definitely see Mike Judge's influence in the art style, but I think J.G. Quintel took the wrong aspects of that art style. At least for me.
I agree that they're ugly and not great to look at, but it is you're right when you think about it that way. The way the humans look are kind of a nod to the way people look in early Beavis and Butthead. That's actually a really good point. Because I've actually been looking into some Beavis and Butthead stuff lately. When I was looking into whether or not I thought regular show was inspired by Beavis and Butthead. Spoiler alert, yes it is. The background characters are ugly. Long story short. Me, I'm kind of indifferent to it. Deis hates it. We're mixed on it, okay? Move on.
Hold on. How about we get how do you guys feel about the art in general?
I like it.
It's great.
Okay, well,
it's simple to look at. It all blends well.
Besides the people, I like the art.
I have a moderately negative opinion of the art. Not the animation, but the art. The animation's great.
Fair enough. It's not negative enough that you dislike the show as a whole, though. That's the important part.
No. I can only really think of one or two shows that are so ugly that I dislike it based entirely on looks. It's a combination of factors that make me like a show. The art's one of them, because again, animation is a visual medium. You get to fine-tune things exactly the way you want, so when things don't jive well, when things look ugly without a purpose, it bothers me.
It should be noted that, while I agree with you that the people look ugly, they look exactly how he intended them to look. When I think back on it now, especially after you brought the influences to Beavis and Butthead, they're meant to look that way. It's not by accident. You're right. It's intentionally ugly. We've sidetracked on that too long. Let's move on to sound and music.
The opening theme is always what we start with. There.
It's a single note. It's a single note held for like 6 seconds as title card sound effects pop in. Yeah, there is no title to be spoken of. It's really
disgusting.
Yeah, it is. It's odd, and you know why it came. There is a backstory behind it.
Okay.
It is fairly lackluster, or it's kind of anticlimactic. The producers at Cartoon Network, when they greenlit the show, the creator said, "What do you want us to do for an intro? Do you have any ideas for an intro? Suggestions for an intro?" They're like, "Keep it short." Yep, that's the story. That's how it came about. The producers told him to think short on the intro, and instead of doing like something like 10 seconds, 30 seconds, he did a 6-second single note where it shows the title of the episode, gives the major writers credits, and then away we go. It's an interesting choice for sure.
Yeah, I always kind of considered the end credit theme to be the main theme.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to look at it. Yeah, there's no real intro theme to be spoken of, but the show does love music. If there's one major reoccurring thing in this show is music. When we first started watching this together, I was starting to take notes. I picked up really, like within 2 or 3 episodes, I'm like, wow, this show really likes musical montages.
Yeah, there's one in nearly every episode. We'll hear either an official piece, a covered piece, or an instrumental piece.
The show loves music, and it loves official licensed music as well. It has 18 officially licensed real-life musical tracks in just the 3 first seasons.
There's one that I recognize. It's definitely the Mississippi Queen one.
And spoiler alert for further episodes outside the scope of this podcast, but it covers pretty much everything. There's the Seagulls, Iran is one of the mini-episode songs. It's great. In later episodes, way later, they have fucking Dragon Force's Through the Fire and Flames. They have all kinds of great real-world, like, 80s music. It really loves 80s music. Queen is featured in a couple episodes. I'm sure you guys can name some people off the top of your head.
Well, how about this? What's the favorite licensed piece from the first 3 seasons that you guys remember? Which one really stuck out to you that you really loved from the episodes we saw?
That's tough.
The one that stuck out to me the most, I guess because it was the most different and the most familiar to me, was Hey Man, Nice Shot by Filter. Not only because I enjoyed the song, but because I was really impressed that they went the high road and did something different than hip-hop for the basketball game.
I have not really been disappointed with any of the uses of licensed music. I really enjoyed there's 2 songs used in the karaoke episode. I think that's season 2, maybe early season 3. I don't remember.
It's season 2 finale.
Yeah, the karaoke episode has We're Not Gonna Take It. Who's it by? I can't remember who that one's by. But
Twisted Sister, right?
Yeah, Twisted
Sister. And they have Footloose in that one as well. And that one's Kenny Loggins, yeah. But they have all kinds of shit. I really like the karaoke episode. That's my answer. Footloose.
Obviously, it would be the season 4 episode you just showcased us the other night, where we got to hear the touch.
Oh yeah.
That track was specifically chosen for that episode because of the content in the show. That's another thing I'd like to point out. When the licensed music is used right, it can be phenomenal. When it's the right song for the right scene, it really, really works.
None of them are done horribly. Some of them are used really, really good, and it really stands out, and it makes the other ones feel a little lackluster, but none of them are done really, really bad.
Music isn't really my specialty, but like I mentioned before, the Mississippi Queen one, I don't know who sings that. I really like that one because it's so trippy. And we know that that drink is not...
yeah, that one's really good. I like that episode.
Yeah.
I guess the bit tunes.
No, that's the Weekend at Vincent's.
Mm-hmm.
It's in such a good episode. Basically, what is the name of the actual movie that's parodying Weekend at Benny's?
Weekend at Bernie's.
Bernie's.
Oh, I didn't know it was actually a parody.
That whole episode is a parody of a movie called Weekend at Bernie's, where a guy is dead, I think. I haven't actually seen it, but I know people who have.
I've seen it, yeah. There's a guy who dies, and his 2 employees are at his beach house. He's some rich asshole, and he's been doing some shady stuff. He's dead, and they have to cover for him so that they can get their pay bonuses for working extra hard. So they have to pretend he's alive for the full weekend so that they can, have their checks cashed and get the hell out.
Okay, so they're basically Mordecai and Rigby.
Uh-huh. It's very, very much based on that movie.
That's awesome. Yeah, I knew the reference. I knew it as soon as I saw the name. Supplemental media, the 80s. The entirety of the 80s, just go up to the decade. So yeah, the music itself, outside of like licensed music, is all something we've said before in other shows. If it's not music they outsourced, and it's kind of lackluster a lot of times.
I think some of the songs written for the show stand up well for what they're supposed to do. We mentioned a couple of the voice actors. I think it'd be a shame not to talk about the voice acting in general. J.G. Quintel, the creator, voices Mordecai, and Mark Hamill voices Skip, so you've covered those before. Are there any other voices that stand out to you guys?
Well, I can't remember her name. CJ was voiced by the chick that did Wendy in Gravity Falls, and that's awesome. Pops was done by Sam Marin. I don't know, there's not very many super iconic voices, well-known voices that I know. Did you notice anyone as super standout?
Yeah, there were a couple for me. There was a season 2 episode called Benson Be Gone, where Benson got fired and replaced. He was demoted. He basically became the third member of Mordecai and Rigby. And he gets replaced by a woman named Susan, who was played by April Stewart. And she does the majority of the female voices for South Park, like Sharon Marsh, Leanne Cartman, Wendy. And then in late season 3, we had my second favorite episode of the series, Dead at 8, where we see Baby Thomas, the child of death, and he was played by Michael Dorn.
I guess I didn't really think about
Yeah, you can instantly hear Worf coming out of that baby. I was thinking, yeah, this is really cool.
It's nice. They do have good guest actors at times. I really like the voice of Death. I can't remember who did it at the time. The main cast, no one is really iconic. I really know the voice actors that much. I don't know what else they've been in. They don't sound bad. They all, even characters I dislike, don't have an aggravating voice. They all sound decent. They all...
Whoa. I don't know that we can say Muscle Man sounds decent.
I don't know.
He kind of sounds obnoxious, but I like it. It fits for his character.
Yeah.
He is somehow simultaneously gravelly and moist.
Gravelly and moist.
Yeah. I think one of the standout performances is probably Benson. I am really impressed with how he managed to keep Benson annoying and uptight in almost every line.
I know he's not a professional voice actor, but I really like Mordecai, the main guy's, I can never remember his name, the creator's performance as Mordecai. You could tell he wrote the character to be him. Like I said earlier, it's kind of self-inserty, which is not a bad thing. When you have interesting stuff to say about yourself, that's not a bad way to write. But he feels very authentic as Mordecai. Everything Mordecai says, like the way he interacts and talks with people, feels like a very awkward person of that age trying to get by in the world. And it feels very authentic. Just the way he presents and talks about the character. Mark Hamill's great, of course.
I wonder how they started that, how Mark Hamill decided to choose Skips to voice act.
They probably go to
of all the characters.
I don't know actually how'd they get Mark Hamill. I guess Cartoon Network fucking connections, man.
They paid him? I'd assume they paid him.
Oh, obviously, but is it some kind of connection? I don't know. I guess he's still doing stuff. Regular show's not that old, and he's still active. I didn't realize. That's cool. Comparisons, inspirations, and influences.
Yeah, we already brought up Beavis and Butthead. It's like if you combine that with SpongeBob SquarePants and then Dumb and Dumber, for example.
There's a great many buddy teams of two doofuses that I can point out. Beavis and Butthead being a clear influence, and one that Mr. Quintel has obviously just flat out said was an influence. I'm also thinking Bill and Ted, Ren and Stimpy, the Angry Beavers, especially Daggett from the Angry Beavers, because man, tell me that's not an influence for Rigby.
You pointed out SpongeBob. I think Mordecai is SpongeBob, Rigby is Patrick, and Vincent is Squidward.
I suppose.
Yeah, it's Beavis and Butthead. We said that one. It has to be hammered home. The outro thing, where they're both sitting in the and they're practically doing the Beavis and Butthead snickering laugh, 100%. Just yeah, it's really good. It has references into it to all kinds of stuff. It references Ataris without talking about Ataris, old technology mostly. Obviously, it makes a lot of references to real world music. There's posters and shit on the wall. Where Beavis and Butthead had shirts that said Metallica. One of them said Metallica and one of them said AC/DC. There's posters on the backgrounds of the walls and shit if you pay attention. What is that famous record cover with the the triangle prism with the light going into it and shooting off? And there's that on a wall if you pay attention, shit like that.
The one episode with Gary Bobbitt Ferguson, who's actually Billy Mitchell. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed for sure.
I'm not sure I get the reference.
Broken Bones. They were playing Broken Bones.
Oh, I remember the episode. Yeah, when they were playing the arcade game.
Yes, and they were trying to get the highest score, and then they were getting close, and then Gary Bob Ferguson comes out and is like, "Don't beat my score." He's obviously Billy Mitchell, the #1 guy of Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Oh, that totally flew over my head. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that episode stood out to me as well, as it had heavy references from the movie The Wizard.
I caught that.
There was a businessman that they were challenging to a video game, and this businessman gives off a line from the film. And the musical montage for that episode was Hang Tough by New Kids on the Block, and that song was part of the movie soundtrack.
That was the first of 2 references to the Wizard, because there was another episode about the Power Glove.
Yes, season 3, episode
Glove.
20. They do a video game tournament to try and win a Power Glove. They don't call it the Power Glove, but yeah, same difference.
Yeah, I like that. That's neat. I never caught that reference to an actual real-life person who was good at video games. That's neat.
I saw an episode where we saw briefly a Twinkie Wiener sandwich that made me think of Weird Al's UHF. I'm not sure if that's where the food originated from, but yeah, I definitely thought of that movie.
You guys are pointing out a lot of good comparisons.
The absurd abstract villains, and even some of the absurd abstract side characters, really remind me of Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
I said this early on when we were first starting watching, and I feel like you say that this show's like in the same family as shows of Adventure Time for multiple reasons. Adventure Time's bizarreness is more constrained by actual rules, as weird as that is if you know Adventure Time. If for some way the world of regular show was all took place on an island within the world of Adventure Time, I wouldn't be surprised.
I guess the other big influence that the creator mentioned was The Simpsons, and at first it took me a long time to figure out where this influence was. Did you guys pick up on any of that? Because I had to really rack my brain to find The Simpsons' influence.
I don't know. I'm not a gigantic Simpsons fan, so I'm not sure I would know.
What I came up with, and this is just me racking my brain, is I think The Simpsons influence is really where the regular show comes from, the name. When The Simpsons came out, they were a dysfunctional family. They were like nothing else on TV. They were perversion, absurdity, a deconstruction of the family sitcom. Mm-hmm. And I think the regular show is a deconstruction of the notion of what's normal. The standard family was no longer normal by the time The Simpsons came out. I think there is no more regular to be had, and that everything is weird and absurd in its own way. I think that is the whole purpose of them exaggerating the consequences and problems of these situations. I think that's where the influence... Well, it took me about an hour just trying to figure that out, just racking my brain, trying to make that connection, and that is the closest thing I could come up with. But seeing it how as it explains the title, I'm pretty happy with it.
I like the way you present it and look at it. I'm not that familiar with The Simpsons. I mean, obviously I know The Simpsons. I've seen quite a bit of it, but I've not a vast knowledge base on it, the history of it and stuff like that. So I like the idea that The Simpsons was put up as like a parody of real-world sitcom families. I like that. Didn't know that. Didn't realize that. I mean, it's obvious when you think about it, but I didn't know it was a very obvious, specific thing that they wanted to do. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's a satire of normal, the concept of normal. The idea that I believe he's trying to get across is that there is no more regular to be had. And if that's the case, then this is as close as real life is to regular.
Yeah, let's get weird, bizarre shit from now on, because all the regular stories have been told.
Have you noticed that we're 6 shows into the podcast and we've already had 2 with baby overlords?
I did bring up this point in a conversation at another time. Yes, I did.
What is the show at Baby Overlords?
Gravity Falls.
Gravity Falls, which I highly recommend you watch. It's so good.
I don't know if I've actually seen that episode. Is it later in the near the end?
He's a recurring minor character. He's a recurring minor character.
Tiny baby.
It's very interesting.
That totally just slipped. I've watched a lot of the episodes. It totally slipped.
Seriously, go watch Gravity Falls from beginning to end.
I don't know. There's so much quirky shit that goes on in this show.
The thing is, I could point out a lot of stuff from eras, a lot of obvious stuff, I have a feeling the guy who made this show and is making a lot of these references in here grew up an era removed from me, so a lot of the references are going over my head. I know some stuff from the 80s, of course, but I'm a 90s kid. A lot of them are probably going to go over my head.
We mentioned Gravity Falls briefly. I think this shares a lot in common with Gravity Falls in that the references are perhaps too dated for the kids who are watching it to really get.
I feel like I would have appreciated it a lot more if I had more of appreciation or knowledge of that time, the time that's being referenced. You could feel that there's a lot of heavy references. I'm slightly disconnected from it, and that's okay. I might be missing some kind of reference, especially with some of their choices of music. Like you guys pointed out some of the times where they used music to specifically from the same movie that they're parodying. That's a reference that went over my head, right?
It's more than just what they directly reference in the show. It's also maybe how they think about it, how they structure it.
Yeah, I know that, and we already talked about that. But I was also talking about stuff that they directly input into the show. You want to move on? Favorite moments, and why is it fun run?
My favorite episode is a bunch of baby ducks. Those ducklings are just badass.
Yeah.
Like, they are badass, and they can transform into some kind of a humanoid.
Well, that was
duck,
spoiled later.
Eagle thing.
Yeah, they did it once.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They do it in the first episode as well.
Okay.
They're just badass. I love that episode. For what the fuck moment in this show, I would say the anthropomorphic lactating coffee bean. That was a sumo wrestler.
Yeah, it's pretty what the fuck.
For that episode, Mordecai and Rigby are trying to stay up by drinking coffee so that they can do extra work to get money just so they can buy tickets to a concert. And eventually they run out of coffee, and here comes this anthropomorphic coffee bean and a sensei or something. And yeah, I don't know if I can even go into more detail. It's that weird.
It's an odd show. My favorite, I should think me and Dais share, if not our favorite, but they're at least both amongst our favorites, is Fun Run. It's a mini-sode. It's basically just a music video for the Seagulls I Ran.
Yeah, Flock of Seagulls I Ran.
The Flock of Seagulls I Ran, yeah. Pops realize the entire, it's 4 minutes, and the first couple seconds is Pops realizing that people can run for fun. And so it's so he goes on a run, Forrest Gump style, across the world, and it's just a montage of Pops running to the Flock of Seagulls I Ran, and it's glorious. It exemplifies what regular show is in a way. Musical montages. In my mind, anyway, there's a lot of musical montages. I really love it. It's great. My favorite actual episode, I don't know, I enjoyed a lot of episodes. I really liked the babysitting one. I like Death as a character. He's pretty amusing, and seeing Death's family was pretty funny. Most of the stuff that goes into Skip's backstory, I find bizarrely fun to watch. The weird floating baby entities and the weird rock star guy that's a fate or something. I don't know what hell his story is. And then he hangs out. Any episode that has to deal with Skip's bizarre Skipsness is enjoyable.
I don't know if I have a favorite episode, but I definitely have some favorite moments. They've all been mentioned already in this podcast. Fun Run is the highest quality entertainment that you can get in 4 minutes at a regular show. If you don't find that amusing, then
you won't enjoy the show.
You probably won't enjoy the show. I just adore Pops as a character. He's great. He's definitely my favorite character of the bunch. So I think my favorite moment from the show is Pops singing Footloose at the karaoke bar.
Oh yeah,
you mentioned
cool
Death,
too.
And Death is fucking Lemmy. Just straight up Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead.
Yeah.
They are unapologetic in showing him as Lemmy, and that's awesome. I also mentioned the point where Benson is punched for going out of line. That's... And again, I like Benson. Benson's up there.
I also like anytime Rigby dies.
Yes.
That's pretty enjoyable. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, Crimsonnn. What is your favorite episode
Okay.
out of the ones we recently watched? And afterwards, what's your favorite out of all the episodes you've seen?
The second one's going to be a tough one, but my favorite episode is Rage Against the TV. It's the episode where they're playing a video game. And it's a really hard one. There's this final boss they could never beat. Then they actually get there, but the TV breaks. So then they, or the game freezes. So then they,
and
they pause it. And then they go and find a TV, and that one breaks. And like, oh man! And then there's a commercial. We're giving away free TVs. Like, let's get a TV. They go there. They get a really crappy TV because the other ones are expensive. Then they go back to play the game, and it's a crappy TV. So they gotta like punch on and get it to work. Then it comes to life, and they're fighting this boss in real life. It's so cool. But I can relate. It's like
I have a question.
play a
in
video
regards to
game,
that. I have a
and
follow-up
there's like
question.
hard bosses. Like, dang.
Is that in any way related to your real life as a Twitch streamer? Is technical issues to the point where you feel like you're fighting technology maybe a little too close to home? www.twitchtv.crimsonnn.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that episode. I can relate though. When technology fails, and you want to get something done. It just sucks. Like your stream goes down, and you're in a boss fight or story.
You sometimes just wish your computer would come alive so you could punch it. You could feel your wrath.
Yeah, being limited by technology really sucks, but you need it to play video games, so it's understandable. You go out of your way to get something done, like using a crappy PC to play a good game.
So, what's your favorite episode out of all the ones you've seen? You've seen a lot of episodes, right? Do you have any particular?
I have, but there's a lot of them I haven't seen in a long time. The one you mentioned before the podcast, the one with the Duck's Return with the goose.
There's an episode in season 4 where a bunch of adult geese, instead of baby ducks, they're adult geese, come into the park and they start wrecking shit up and throwing away perfectly good sandwiches and being just general dicks. They go to the ducks for advice because ducks and geese are natural enemies, and they tell them to use lasers against the geese, and they didn't work. You need more powerful lasers, so the ducks show up and they transform and they ride inside. It's pure Voltron. It's awesome.
What was well, I don't want to say there was a single moment, but what was it that made you say, out of all the shows that we want to do, this is the show that you're going to guest star on, Crimsonnn? What was it that made regular show jump out and be your number one?
It's like one of the only cartoons I watched every single episode of. Well, I thought I did. Then there was some I missed, and I'm like, whoa, I actually didn't see season 1. I was late in the season when I first watched it. That's because my ex was a big fan of it.
You missed episodes, but the point of the matter is you went out of your way and you thought you watched them all. Right?
Yeah.
You went out of your way to try to do that.
I sort of binge watched them on my own time. And I tried to catch up with all the newest episodes. I like the quirky zaniness, the epic moments that happen. Something small turned into something big. It's like, whoa, what's going to happen? What's the outcome of this? That's why I kept watching the episodes. Every episode had like a moral we can relate to.
It's definitely been an enjoyable experience for me. So I'm glad you chose it and suggested it for us to watch. So, yeah, thanks.
We're on supplemental media.
Supplemental media. I have 2 things listed here because they're kind of vague. I know there are some games. It's a Cartoon Network show, so it has its usual staple of Cartoon Network website flash browser games. I feel like most modern cartoons have that collection of stuff.
There was also a 3DS game that, if it wasn't pure shovelware, it borders on shovelware. I thought it was digital only until I recently saw a physical copy in a pawn shop. From what I've seen, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, a lot of those games based on cartoons really aren't that good. I think Adventure Time has some decent ones.
Most of regular show stuff looks kind of shovelware. The only other supplemental media I know of is one thing that you recently linked to me, Deus, that's going to be worked on, actually, is a crossover comic between regular show and Adventure Time. So regular show and Adventure Time are officially going to cross over. It's going to be in comic form, which is a little unfortunate. If it's going to exist at all, we'd get it in a comic book at least. But it's 2 animated shows. Come on. It would have been awesome. It was a fully animated thing.
At least like 1 episode crossover.
A series.
It also had a short-lived comic series, but I don't think it did that well, and I think it was dropped fairly quickly.
There's not really all that much.
Well, there's of course the internet shorts.
We did bring that up in passing before, I guess, so I spaced it. There is a series of... I don't think any of them are actually... We kind of went ahead a little bit, but that's the nature of a regular show. No spoilers, especially in a mini episode. They're all post-season 3. So they're kind of outside the scope of this episode of the podcast, but at the same time, they are supplemental media for the show itself.
They could have been placed anywhere within the first 3 seasons, and it would have felt in place. It's fine. They're all just one-off weird little things.
Yeah, my favorite is the O episode where they do the basketball shot.
There are 14 mini episodes in total. None of them are in the scope of this podcast episode, though. I think they all take place were released after season 3.
More importantly, there are the prototype, I don't want to call them pilot, but the prototype shorts, 2 in the AM PM and The Man from Lollyland. Those are fairly crucial viewing for anyone who's a fan of a regular show. The Man from Lollyland is Pops, as in the real Pops, the Pops we know, in a slightly different setting. He is in a restaurant visiting from Lollyland as an ambassador, and he tries to pay for his meal with lollipops. The waiter says this is not money, we can't accept this. They get upset at each other. He gets in a huff and tries to walk out. The guy grabs him. They get in a fight, and Pops tries to swing at the guy with a chair. And eventually he's roughed up and thrown out where his car driver flies off into the sky.
I'd like to point out this is not the same Pops, because the Pops in the regular show probably wouldn't have fought him.
Probably not, no. But
it's a proto-Pops.
the other is 2 in the AM PM, which features the depictions and voices of Mordecai and Benson working at a convenience store, presumably at night, on Halloween.
Yeah, and the very beginning of it very much reminds me of Clerks. It's the setting, because they're setting at a clerk thing too, but it's just 2 people bullshitting, slacking at work. Have you ever seen that movie? I really enjoy that movie. I mention it all the time.
Put it short, Mordecai slips Benson some candy laced with LSD, and therefore human-looking Mordecai and Benson suddenly start looking like a blue jay and a gumball machine.
Yep.
So there's a theory that the entire time you see the characters as anthropomorphized beings rather than humans, it could be because Mordecai is on drugs. Yeah. There's a possibility that Mordecai is on drugs.
I like this idea. That we see the show, like we already talked about how Mordecai is basically the lens we view the show through. If Mordecai's on drugs, we see everything like he does. Of course, he's a blue jay, and the girl he likes is also a bird.
It's a very recent show. Regular show has surprisingly little supplemental media, which is surprising because it did quite well.
It does have the usual slew of toys and figures and stuff. Merchandise, though.
It's pretty bare bones compared to other cartoons. Final thoughts. I really enjoyed rewatching the show. Like I said before, I didn't watch the earlier seasons. I got in later. I didn't realize there's so much I missed. I'm like, this is good. I like this. I recommend you should watch it. It's definitely a good watch. You could watch it in parts and chunks. You could binge it. That's what I did. I binged it.
Good background show.
Oh, definitely good. You can multitask, like play a video game and watch it at the same time.
See, I'm going to be the voice of dissent again. I don't think it's a good show for binge watching at all. It's episodic, which means you don't have to pay full attention and feel like you missed something, but it's also so repetitive in the formula of Rigby causes a problem, everybody's panicking, Skips and or Mordecai and or Pops solve problem, and then they have to clean up the mess. That gets kind of repetitive. So I feel like watching more than 4 or 5 episodes in a row kind of wears on you. It wore on me anyway.
I'm actually going
to I could feel that too.
I do enjoy the show. I do binge a little bit from time to time. I watch like 4 or 5 episodes in a row. But I do mix it up with other stuff. Actually, the majority of the time I watched seasons 1 through 3, I was actually watching like 2 episodes of regular show, a podcast, and listening to a podcast. I was mixing in with other stuff because you're right, it does get kind of repetitive. But I do enjoy it enough that I want to go back. That every couple other episodes of a show I watch, I'm like, you know what? I have more regular show I could watch. Let's sprinkle in an episode. I'm probably going to be enjoying this show for a while because there's quite a big backlog to watch. I guess that's my final thoughts. I enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the backlog.
I feel the same way pretty much as DaisZX is. I like it for what it is, but I always felt like my IQ was dropping the more I watched in a row. I guess I could stand maybe 2 or 3 episodes, but then I kept thinking, okay, when is it ever going to end? The seasons increase in length as you go. So like the first season is 12 episodes, the second is about 20, and then the third is about 40 or something. And
I don't think it keeps that rate, though. I think it becomes rather inconsistent. There's later seasons that are pretty short, like early seasons.
Season 2, episode 25 is the pilot, so to speak. It shows how Mordecai and Rigby got their jobs at the park. Outside of that, everything else is just kind of random. If I were to catch the show on TV, I wouldn't say no. I would probably pop it on, but I would not be going out of my way to continue finishing up the other seasons.
I think it's a weird, dumb show that's all about the humor, and I think that's okay. It's definitely a change of pace from the plot-driven stories I've been watching lately, and I appreciate that. I think I do enjoy a comedy show with some narrative behind it, so maybe I'll check out the seasons with some overarching plot behind them later. I think I've had enough of the episodic version of the show. If Mojo tells me, hey, season 7 starts the real plot behind it, they're about to go to space now, you only have to watch these 10 episodes from season 6 to get to it, yeah, I'll watch the plot part at some point, sure.
Yeah, if it even really ever gets to that point, if the plot ever becomes anything other than just minor things. What if they go to space and there's like a 4 or 5 episode arc about how they get to the space and how they immediately act afterwards, and then it's just regular show in space, as the show implies.
Then I've got 10 episodes to enjoy, don't I? I have nothing negative to say about the show, but it did get repetitive. I feel like I've digested it already with only 3 seasons. I don't know what seasons 4, 5, 6, 7 have to offer.
So yeah, I guess that's this episode of the podcast, guys. I'm going to say again, you guys should go check out Crimsonnn, and thanks to Crimsonnn for hanging out.
You're welcome.
Thank you for recommending the show.
Like I said, it's something I've enjoyed watching, and I'm looking forward to watching more, so I am very thankful for you for suggesting it. And I guess, how do you want to go out, guys?
There's only one way to go. Yeah.
There's only one way.
Oh!